So we left off in chapter 25 of Proverbs. We're picking it up on verse 11. Time permitting, we're going to move a little faster pace. We probably will get through chapter 26 maybe tonight, but I like the pace that we've been going at too. So it's going to have a couple of key areas it's going to talk to us about, but this is a continuation beginning at the beginning of chapter 25 where Hezekiah's scribes and advisors have found some more of the Proverbs of Solomon, and they have, I think it's the Lord's timing, and brought them together. And some of them are kind of clumped into areas talking about the fool, talking about the lazy man. But first off, there's some preliminary ones that kind of take a word at a time. Take a look at it with me in verse 11. So timely advice is lovely, like golden apples in a silver basket. Silver basket would sound pretty heavy to me, but it would still a great sight if you can imagine about it. But let's talk about a word that is spoken in the right place at the right time. The church is blessed today because of the Spirit. We have the word of wisdom. We have the word of knowledge. We have other things. But it goes beyond that. Even if that's not maybe one of the giftings God's using in you, still you can be thoughtfully wise, and you can insert a wise word where it's needed. The Lord will do that through you and for you, and put that in your heart and your mind. And it means so much. It's so refreshing when somebody gets a word that just hits their life just right, encourages them, directs them. And it's just there's no other way to put it that way. And so also we need to think about our words before we speak. Unless it's a word of the Lord, then you don't really have a chance. You just speak it out. Verse 12 goes on, and it tells us, to one who listens, valid criticism is like a golden earring or a gold jewelry. On the flip side of that is us. When something is spoken to us, even if it's in rebuke, I was talking with Mike earlier, actually a couple of the guys earlier today about it, when he got up on worship night and he talked about something that just jogged my mind, that during the cool of the evening is the time that God speaks to us a lot of times. We came into worship in the cool of the evening, and I was thinking about the night I was saved. It was just like last night. There was this cool of the evening. And then on top of that, I think about in Genesis 3 when God is going to approach Adam and Eve, and it's in the cool of the evening and when he usually met with them. And on this particular cool evening, he was going to give a big rebuke to them. But notice the gentleness of the way that the Lord speaks. He comes to them, no big deal. They took of the fruit, of the tree. We've all died since. No big deal. And he comes in there, but he has to rebuke Adam. He has to rebuke Eve. He has to rebuke the serpent. He has to give the gospel, the proto-evangelism is what it's called, of taking and saying, but there's one who's coming from the seed of the woman who's going to bruise his heel, but he's going to bruise your head, referring to the serpent. In other words, that would be mortal, and that would be Jesus Christ, who would not die completely, but would resurrect from the grave, but he would mortally wound the evil one. But what I'm saying about that is, look at the way the Lord approached that, though. He didn't come screaming into the garden. He didn't bring a bunch of angels with flaming swords. He didn't terrorize them. They were hiding from him, and he gently, in the cool sweetness of the evening, says, where are you? God knows where we're at. He said, where are you? And he gets them together, and he talks to them in that way, and it's just a sweet thing. And sometimes we need to correct people, but if it's given kindly, restoration being the focus of it, it can be a precious thing, and it can be ultimately like gold in somebody's life to be correctly rebuked. Have you ever been rebuked and it turned out for really good that you can remember in your adult life? One of it, you and me, buddy, you and me. Guzik said, when the wise rebuker meets the obedient ear, it is like fine jewelry. Think about that. When the wise rebuker meets the obedient ear, it's like fine jewelry. So be on both sides of that. Verse 13. Trustworthy messengers refresh like snow in summer. They revive the spirit of their employer. It was an interesting thing that in the days that of Hezekiah, who's recording these things down, really back in the days of Solomon before him, when the harvester would be out there working the fields, and depending where they were at, if they were anywhere near the taller of the mountains like Mount Hermon, they would do an interesting thing because it could get hot in the middle of the day, but the early part of the day wasn't so bad. They would send guys up the hill and find if there was any crevices with snow. They would bring the snow, they would dig it out, bring the clumps down to baskets, and they would bring it down below, and they would set it in whatever they could use for a cave. They would pack it away so that when it got hot in the day, the workers come in and they could put that. They had the first ice in the water for these guys, and they would have the coolness of the day. That's kind of the reference that's given right here. The good news hits you like that, like snow in the summer. That's the imagery that we're catching off of that. And there's something sweet about a message that comes like that. A message hits you like that. There's nothing like a hot day just getting in and getting some cold iced tea or something just to kind of, you can feel it going all the way down. You know what I'm talking about on a hot day? And it's like that. And it's a precious thing. But he's saying that's what good news is like. And when we were in college, news from home was like that. Word from home. We didn't have a phone back in college. We were just hillbillies back in Missouri. We didn't have them things. So we get letters, or occasionally the folks would call. My brother had a phone, and so he would come running across the way. Say, hey, they're on the phone. They come on over, and we'd run back over there and upstairs and to the phone. But to get word from home was always kind of a neat thing, and so it can be precious to get a word. Sometimes people just need a word. They need a good, precious word, and we can do that for them. Verse 14, a person who promises a gift but doesn't give it is like clouds and wind that bring no rain. I think the best illustration in the New Testament is Ananias and Sapphira. They said, hey, we're going to give everything we have. We're going to sell this house. We're going to give it all away. And we're going to give it to the Lord. Only they didn't. They didn't have to, but they told everybody they were doing it. And so God really rebuked them, and he actually killed them for doing that. Keep that in your mind, by the way. But a false giver is an unproductive thing. It's like the words of a false teacher in Jude chapter 12, where it uses the same imagery. Clouds without rain is what these guys bring. And so we need to be really careful that what we say, what we do is for real. And if we make a promise, we keep it. Verse 15, patience can persuade a prince, and soft speech can break bones. And a lot's being said there right there, but the Bible also teaches us that it's a soft word that turns away wrath. When Christians get a handle on that you have to have self-control to do that. Because somebody gets in your face or do something that just really grinds at you, you want to come back at them. You want to settle them down. You want to correct them because they are just so far in the wrong in their thinking. Now, come on. You know what I'm talking about. I can see in your eyes. You won't nod your heads, but I can see your eyes are agreeing with me. Oh, try something different. Try what the Word of God says. A soft word turns away wrath. Watch what happens. Instead of saying, hey, well, you're wrong, buddy, say, I've never thought about it that way. Here's the way I see it, but I've never thought about it that way. Soften it up. See what happens. You'll be amazed by it. Verse 16. Do you like honey? Who doesn't, with peanut butter on toast? Do you like honey? I forgot what verse I'm on here. Let's see, verse 16. My mind went off there a little bit. Don't eat too much or it will make you sick. Don't overdo is the whole idea here, the good things, whatever they may be. It's not just honey. I mean, whatever some people say, man, donut is great. I remember I went with Pastor Gary Johnson years ago. They opened up a Krispy Kreme. The first one in the area was over by the Ontario Mills Mall. So we'd been to a pastor's meeting. He says, hey, you want to go? I said, sure. They have a conveyor belt, and these little suckers come out hot on the conveyor belt. Have you ever been to one of those? Oh yeah, but God, everybody's been there. It sounds like I know where you all guys have been. So we get there, and it's so good. So we grab one. We have a cup of coffee. We're just chowing on this hot thing. Let's get another one. We got another one. You want to do another one? Honey, he made me do it. We got another one, and they were so good. But before we got home, we both had these stomach aches because the grease of these things, it wasn't good. We ate too much of a good thing. But it's that way. It's not just food that's talking about. You can say, wow, that was great. When we were out on a cruise with our kids a while back, we were talking to some people there that were, they have a name for the people that go from cruise to cruise to cruise. No, I don't know what they go out, and so they get off that boat and they say, oh yeah, we're getting on another boat today, and they go off and they do this. This is their life. Cruises are a lot of fun. Space them out a little bit. You don't want to go on the next. It loses its fizz. It's like anything else. Oh yeah, my kids. It's amazing when they're growing up. Oh, they see a great movie. Oh, they want to go see it again, and they see it again, and they've watched that movie. They've been paid for that movie 5 times. You're thinking, Well, it'd be fine maybe to see that one day when I forget part of the dialogue, but I don't want to watch it over and over and over again. It's just not the same. You can overindulge. And I think that's the whole idea that Paul teaches us to do things in moderation. He says, let every one of you see that you are considerate. The word in the New King James is moderate in all that you do. Remember, the Lord is coming soon. You need to keep it in focus. Having a great time is great, but that's not all there is to life. There's more to it than that. I love having vacations with my kids, but there's times when I have to instruct. There's times when I had to rebuke in chasing them. There's times when I had to teach them in things. We have to put everything in its place. Don't overdo it. You like honey? Great. Well, that's not all there is to life. It's what it's saying. Let me read this to you from Kidner. Since Eden, man has wanted the last ounce out of life as though beyond God's enough lay ecstasy, not nausea. You just keep it in mind. Everything has a place. Everything has moderation to it. Verse 17 says, don't visit your neighbors too often or you will wear out your welcome. Yeah, I would get a doormat maybe that says that. No, I'm kidding. I don't. But there were days when we first came to town, we came to a seniors church, and man, somebody was always coming over. Saturdays, I just say this, and they were sweet people. I don't get this wrong at all, but they were all a lot older than us. I was like 30, or we were about 30 when we came to town, something like that. And we what was it? How old were we about that? I don't know, 40, 60, 80, I don't know. We were about 30. But they liked us, and they came over. They wanted to come over and see us. And then I started rebuilding a house up on the hill. I used my Saturdays. And they'd come up there to see us. They were just being really nice and everything, but didn't get a thing done. So it finally got to the point where I got into the practice, for the sake of my family, of getting away on Saturdays. And we would just go somewhere every Saturday. Wherever it was, we just go make a day out of it, because that's the only way that we could have that kind of time. But, they didn't realize it. They needed a mat at my door that said this right here. It's going to be perfect. No, you just need to know when you're dealing with people, there's a time to stop talking. There's a time to let people go to bed. There's a time to get off the phone or say, yeah, it's okay. It's been a great evening. Let's go. It's okay, because people, they'll tell you otherwise, but people want to go to bed. The older they get, the earlier it is, right? Can I get an amen on that one? Okay, verse 18. Telling lies about others is as harmful as hitting them with an axe, wounding them with a sword, or shooting them with a sharp arrow. Well, lies are hurtful. I mean, we don't like that. You shouldn't be telling a lie in the first place. But when you lie to your friends or your mate or your kids, it's like striking them or wounding them. It literally removes the trust between you, a husband and a wife, or you and a good friend. Because once they find out you've been lying, man, I can't tell you the damage that's done. And it's one thing to be lied to by a stranger, but when it's somebody you really love, it's a whole different thing. Bridges said this, I thought it was pretty good. The tongue wounds 4 people at one stroke. The person harms himself, the object of his attack, anyone who's listening with his words in the name of God. So flee from this deadly disease. We hurt a lot of people. So, if you start lying to your kids, they're going to find out eventually, and you know what? They won't trust anything you say. You break trust with them. They're not going to listen to your instruction anymore after that. Verse 19, putting confidence in an unreliable person in times of trouble is like chewing with broken tooth or walking on a lame foot. I think you need to be wise. We're going to get to a section on wisdom here itself, but if there's somebody who's unreliable as an employer, you don't send them out to do a job. If there's somebody who's unreliable, you be careful with what you're telling them. You need to be wise about these things. It's not that you need to close yourself off, but you need to be wise about these things. Before you loan your tools out, do you know the guy? Before do you know that? Before you loan out your guitar, which I don't, to anybody, including my kids. But before I loan out, do I know the person well? Now, I know my kids really well. The answer is still no. But the point is, before I let out responsibility, and I've had so many times in ministry where people have said, well, I'm training up somebody to take my place, and I've thought about it, and I went back to them, and many times said, I don't think you ought to do that. I think God gave you that ministry. I think you ought to think really carefully about giving away what God has given you to do. God didn't tell you to tell somebody else to do what he told you to do. I can't say that twice. God's told you to do something, you go about and doing it. Can you raise up staff? Sure, but you cannot relinquish something God has given you specifically to do. Be careful about giving something to somebody else. Are they vetted? Are you being careful about it? Are they faithful? If not, you're going to feel the problem. It's going to come back and it's going to bite you. Verse 20. Singing cheerful songs to a person with a heavy heart is like taking somebody's coat in cold weather or pouring vinegar in a wound. In other words, it's just not appropriate. It's just not appropriate. Can you imagine that? Going to somebody's funeral, they're sitting around, they're crying, and they're having a hard time. And you just go up there and you just start singing to them. You know, whatever song you got on your heart. Whoop-de-doo. Does this sound a little out of place? Some of you are saying, no, I think I've done that. Don't do it again. It's not the time for it. It's not time for a joke. You know, to sit down and next to somebody, well, brother, I'm so sorry. By the way, look, you heard the one about, and start telling them this. It's just not appropriate. Good friend of mine, when he lost his wife, it was about 20 years ago, I remember talking with him a lot during that time. I preached for him quite a bit during that time, too. He just said, you know, one of the most painful things about all this, I never saw it coming. I realized that I have made the mistake, too. He said, you know, the hardest thing is when people come up and say, how are you doing? He says, it just brings it all back up again. And since that day, I've never asked anybody who's lost anybody, how you doing? Because I realize that just makes them bring up the whole issue all over again. And that's not what's in it. We need to do what's appropriate, and that's the problem there. Verses 21 and 22 work together. If your enemies are hungry, give them food to eat. If they are thirsty, give them water to drink. You will heap burning coals of shame on their heads, and the Lord will reward you. My wife taught me about this some time ago when she was reading, and I thought it was really good. See, we're called to be witnesses. We're not called to hold grudges. That's a worldly kind of thing. And the idea here is a cultural one. And so that when somebody's fire was out, I mean, we didn't have lighters and, you know, they had flints and whatnot. It wasn't always that easy to get a fire going. And so they would do this. You could, if you knew somebody who needed that, or somebody came to you and said, you've got a fire going there, could I get some embers or something? The idea is you would take some of your embers or coals and you would put them in a clay pot and you would put them on your head. Typically in that day, you'd have a towel down there, and you'd walk it down to them so they would have it and they could start their fire with that. But he says, do this for your enemy. Do this for your enemy. It's that soft word all over again. And yes, you know what? If maybe they've been somebody who's been talking bad about you, or maybe they've been mean to you, or maybe they're the mean person on the block or whatever the case may be. But the fact that you go and you express with something that's truly helpful for them, it softens things. It speaks of the love of Christ, who forgave you for everything you ever did and everything you're yet to do that's wrong. And you're speaking that out to them. And I think it's an important lesson for us all. When we bless others, even with a soft word, it can break down those defenses. Let me read this to you from Jesus' words in Matthew chapter 5, verse 44. It should be on the screen. But I say, leave your enemies. I'm so love you. Leave them. Well, there's a thought. But I say, love your enemies. Pray for those who persecute you. In that way, you will be acting as true children of your Father in heaven. For he gives his sunlight to both the evil and the good, and he sends the rain on the just and on the unjust alike. If you love only those who love you, what reward is there for that? Even corrupt tax collectors do that much. If you're kind only to your friends, how are you different from anyone else? Even pagans do that. So if you want to be a witness, step out and go the extra mile and be kind, is what he's saying. It works. Got a glazed look in a lot of those eyes there. Maybe you've never tried it. It really does work. All right, let's go on. He's going to hit this next one a few times. When in verse 23, he talks about gossip. He says, these are just more sayings here. Here are some, get on the right page here. 23, as surely as the north wind brings rain, so a gossiping tongue causes anger. Just think about that for a moment. If you've ever had anybody gossip about you and you heard it down the line, you heard it, oh, did you know what they were saying about you? You know what that person said about you? Maybe I shouldn't say it. And then they go, hey, come on, what did they say? And they say, you say, I thought they were my friend. How could they say that about me? Have you been in that position? I think everybody has sometime or another. You found that somebody had said something nasty about you, and then it really hurt your feelings. And I think the point that he's trying to get across here is that to gossip, when it's found out, it's going to just bring about anger. And it's hard to forget or forgive unless there's a sincere effort at reconciliation with that person on a personal level. It's really difficult. And so we need to be careful about that. He's going to talk more about that in a few verses down. Verse 24, again, this poor guy. Verse 24, it's better to live alone in the corner of an attic than with a quarrelsome wife in a lovely home. Now, he's had twice, this is the third time. One time he was in the attic before. Next time he was out in the desert. Now he's back in the attic and still having problems, and it's a lovely home, but he says, obviously he's having some problems right there. We were not built to quarrel with each other as husbands and wives. We are built to build our marriage, to take delight in one another. And if you don't do that, if you're coming home, it's just a stress and a strain, guys, you got to work on things because it should not be that way. You've got to remember how to laugh again. You got to laugh at yourselves a little more. You need to put a little fun into life. Go out for walks. Turn off the TV. Spice up a little bit of the food, and spice up a little bit of everything else while you're at it. You need to have at it, Okay, verse 25. We better get off of this one real quick. Good news from far away. Again, he mentioned this before. It's like cold water to the thirsty. He's just reiterating that. We got the best phone call last week when we were setting up for the yard sale. As you know, one of my sons has been going through cancer, had cancer surgery, and has another to do. In fact, they're in Phoenix now. He has consultation in the morning there about it. But he called up with the best news, and he's not always ecstatic. He's kind of the more stoic guy, and he says, "I got some great news." And he told me the news. They found the spot they were talking about in the lung and on the spine. They're so microscopic they can't even operate. They're going to figure out how they're going to handle that. They're going to do it another way. And everything. It was just all good. He was just ecstatic about that. And I was so blessed by that. I said, "Son, that was the Lord that did that." He says, "Yeah, that was the Lord that did that." And we prayed together on the phone. That was good news. We love to get good news. It just changes everything for us. It's like the breaking of the clouds and giving way for the sun. Let me read you scripture from Isaiah 52:7. How beautiful on the mountains are the feet of the messenger who brings good news, the good news of peace and salvation, the news of the God of Israel reigns, the God of Israel reigns. When you bring the gospel to somebody, it's better than cold water on a hot day. It changes them. Your own life. You're not what you used to be. You get up in the morning, there's something to sing about. You get up in the morning, there's something to smile about, right? But you remember the old days? That wasn't the case. You got up in the morning and thought, "Oh, man, I didn't study for this test. Oh, man, I'm not prepared for the bill that's coming. Oh, no, I forgot to put the trash out, and I can hear her coming." All these things, that's all that filled your mind before you came to know the Lord. But when you came to the Lord, everything changed. Everything on the inside changed, and I love that. And so when we bring the message to people, that's what we're bringing. It's cold water on a hot day. Verse 26. If the godly give in to the wicked, it's like polluting a fountain or muddying a spring. We need to be careful. I was thinking about this. One way that, and then you say, I don't know if that's what this is talking about, but it hit me this way. We need to be careful with the pearls that God gives to us, lest they be wasted. God gives you insights, and you say, "Wow, I want to share that with somebody." Great. Think about who you're sharing it with. Think about it. Be careful about it. I can't tell you how many garage sales that I've gone to, and I've picked up brand new Bibles. Some parent has written this wonderful message for their son or their daughter, and they prayed and they hoped that would just be, they would read that Bible and God would begin to change them, and instead it wound up in a garage sale somewhere still in the box. Jesus warned us about this. Don't waste what is holy on people who are unholy. Don't throw your pearls to pigs. They will trample the pearls and then turn and attack you. Some people just aren't ready yet. And if you've got a neighbor, a friend, a kid, or somebody, and you've been witnessing to them and they're just not having it, back it down. Wait for the Lord to lead for the right timing. Because right now, if you're not careful, you're just going to give them stuff to harden their heart about. And Jesus taught us to be careful there. Verse 27. It's not good to eat too much honey. We already talked about that. It's not good to seek honors for yourself. This gets into the area of self-indulgence. Another reason that we don't, is using the metaphor of honey in this case right here, it's not good to continue to eat too much of it because we will have a wasted life, is what he's trying to say here. And if we have a wasted life, it begins to be a life with broken down walls. You know, everybody loves, there's things, we talked about Hawaii. You guys went a few years ago. We went last year. We had a great time going there. I love going to Hawaii. I don't want to live there, and I don't want to go there every year. But I know when we go, we enjoy it. I think we enjoy it a lot because it's usually years between whenever we get to go back. There's other things to do. And I love going on vacation, but I'm always, antsy to get back and get back to the people here. This is my family. To get back here, I get back to what I do. I go nuts when I'm on vacation on Sunday because I'm not where I'm supposed to be. I really do. I frustrate her over this whole thing. And so we got to remember that it's great to have a good time, but then there's time to come back and do what you're supposed to do. It's great to have this kind of food, but you can't have it all the time. It's great to have this great pie or something that somebody has made right there. But if you can't have that all the time or you're going to look like, me. You don't want to go that direction. So you want to just learn when to just say, okay, that's enough of that. Self-indulgence is a life that has broken down walls. It doesn't have restraint in it. Paul tells us, I think it was him that was speaking here in Acts 20, verse 35, and I have been a constant example of how you can help those in need by working hard. You should remember the words of our Lord Jesus. It's more blessed to give than to receive. And so Paul, while he enjoyed the blessings of the Lord, he also made tents. He also earned money to be able to do ministry. And so he didn't want to have that laxness of having broken down walls. He wanted them to see that there's character in the Christian. There's character in what we do. Finally, verse 20 of that chapter, a person without self-control is like a city with broken down walls, kind of continuing that same thought as in verse 27 in its disorderly life. Okay? Let's go for just a little bit. We're not going to get to 26, obviously. Well, let's go ahead and take just a little bit. There are going to be themes in here. The first portion of this is about the fool. Verse 1 says, honor is no more associated with fools than snow with summer or rain with harvest. Let me just say this about the word fool. It's the word kisil in the Hebrew. And the word is not what we often think of. We think of a fool maybe as somebody who is a very low IQ, maybe mildly retarded or something like that. That's not what the Bible says. The word fool would be better translated today as insolent. Insolent. This is a person who is rebellious, who does not want to hear. He has his ears stopped up from listening. This is the fool that the Bible talks about. And there's no honor with them. And they don't have any honor. And the thing about it is that, by this you understand they don't earn honor because they have a rebellious spirit about those things. They have a rebellious attitude. You say, well, everybody likes to be built up. Well, if you're a fool, you're not in a position to be built up because you've chosen to be insolent instead. Verse 2 takes a slight detour from that. It says, like a fluttering sparrow or darting swallow, an undeserved curse will not land on its intended victim. When I was young in the ministry, there was a minister who really he just passed away recently, as a matter of fact. He took me under his wings, supported us, Ed Rothenberger. He was really good to us and really encouraging, gave me a lot of advice. But I remember talking to him young in the ministry, and I said, I just don't understand it because I've heard, people criticize or say bad things or gossip, even about me. And he said, you know what? The only thing you ever have to worry about are the things that are said that are true. And that's what this proverb is telling us. Everybody gets gossiped about. All you have to worry about are the things that are true. If they're gossiping you about some lie, well, it'll fizzle. It'll fizzle on its own, so don't spend too much time worrying about it. He goes on talking about the fool in verse 3, and he says, guide a horse with a whip, and a donkey with a bridle, and a fool with a rod to his back. Now, this is figurative. You can't go around beating people. They don't allow that, basically speaking. But the point is that you need to deal appropriately with the person who is insolent, if that's the case. If he's going to be correctable, you need to deal with him that way. As he'll tell us in a bit, if he's not correctable, you just need to get away from him. But it picks it back up, verse 4 and 5, where it says, don't answer the foolish arguments of a fool, or you will become as foolish as they are. Be sure to answer the foolish argument of a fool, or they will become wise in their own estimation. You say, well, that's a contradiction. No, it's really not. Don't answer their arguments. Don't get entangled in their foolish talk. Don't do that. However, if they are correctable at all, you need to try to correct them gently so that they do not continue on being foolish. You know, your teenagers have all put you through this. They all have. Your teenagers, unless you have one of the anointed ones, you know, Messiah Jesus Jr. in your home, they'll put you through it. And, you know, they do things you just say, man, I can't believe how stupid that kid is, you know. And, you know, they are. But you need to understand this. You need to try to correct them. If they will not be corrected, step back, because your words are going on deaf ears. They're not in a position to be corrected. They're not allowing them to be corrected. Verse 6 goes on. I'm going to go down to verse 10, and then we're going to close. Trusting a fool to convey a message is like cutting off one's feet or drinking poison. Well, that's pretty serious. So don't allow your precious messages to go out through a fool. Don't allow your key jobs to go out to a fool, because he's insolent. He'll want to do his own thing and think he's wise in doing it. Verse 7 and 9 kind of go together. A proverb in the mouth of a fool is as useless as a paralyzed leg. That sounds like that Kennedy senator guy. Well, and verse 9 says, a proverb in the mouth of a fool is like a thorny branch and brandished by a drunk. There's no wisdom in you to give you or to give a proverb to a fool. God's not going to do it. He's not going to have anything wise to say because he is in rebellion. So always remember that. The word fool in the Old Testament especially is not talking about IQ. It's not talking about somebody who has low intelligence. It's talking about somebody who is rebellious, who's insolent, who doesn't believe that you have anything to tell him. It says in verse 8 that he has no honor. It's impossible for him to have honor, and it's his fault. It's not yours. It's not the world's. It's his because of his attitude of his heart. Finally, in verse 10, I'll leave it there. An employer who hires a fool or a bystander is like an archer who shoots at random. You say, I just got to get this job done. You go do it. And you really haven't thought about this guy at all. He can do a lot more damage than he can do good because he's a fool. And we have to be careful about that. Now, we're going to move off the fool to the lazy guy again. He's going to talk about as we go through the rest of this chapter. And then we'll get to quarreling and gossip on the last part of the chapter. We'll do that next week instead. So is anybody feeling more stupid, foolish, gossipy? It's the book of wisdom, because a lot of wisdom is knowing what not to do. And that's where the Proverbs take us a great deal of time. Don't be like this. He talks about the fool repeatedly, and I think the thing I need to think about in my life is, am I ever at the point where I think that I'm wise when I'm really just insolent? I don't want to be like that. I don't think I am nowadays, but in my younger days, I have a lot of questions. And so I constantly check myself. I constantly evaluate myself. I believe the words that God gave to Paul, that I am to examine myself constantly. We need to be doing that, right? Because the master's coming. I'd rather examine myself now than when he comes and he finds me not doing what I'm supposed to be doing, and he beats me and sends me off where there's weeping and gnashing of teeth. So an important safety tip is don't do that. Okay? Can you remember that one for tonight? All right, well, then we'll stand together. And nobody will have to come beat you. Thank you, Lord, for giving us all of these things that challenge our flesh. They just challenge us. Say, have you been gossiping? Well, I hope not. Lord, examine me and see if I have been. Have I been quarreling? Examine me, Lord, because I don't think I do, but Lord, maybe. You tell me. Lord, have I acted like a fool? Lord, you tell me, because my own heart's kind of flaky and I don't know how I don't always see myself correctly. I look into a mirror, it says in the New Testament, and then I walk away and I forget what I look like. So, Lord, if you spoke to me about this last week, I may have forgotten what you told me. Take a look inside again if you would. Check me out, Lord. Search me out. See if there be any wicked way in me. I don't want to be a fool in your kingdom. I want to be somebody that when you come, you find having done the job correctly, right, well, and with the right heart. I want to hear at the end of it all, and I can't imagine that I would or will, but I so desire to hear, well done, good and faithful servant. Enter into the joy that I have prepared for you. Let that be our desire, Lord, our heart's desire. Let that be a guide for us for whatever comes out of our mouth, for whatever we do in our actions, Lord, and how we respond to the things that come at us. Let us remember those words, Lord.